So tonight is a very special night for those of us called to holy orders, because this is the night that Christ instituted both the sacrament of holy orders and the Eucharist. We can't have one without the other. And when I was a kid, I would altar serve as many of these Triduum liturgies as my parents would allow me to. When I was in high school and serving as an extraordinary minister of communion and a lector and singing in the choir, I loved volunteering for these liturgies because there's something special and obviously different from how we celebrate tonight through Sunday compared to every other Sunday, including Christmas. These liturgies reveal more the mystery that we profess and believe as Catholic disciples of Jesus. Tonight, in particular, points to holy orders, especially the priesthood and the Eucharist. Now, I was ordained a deacon 8 years ago, and I've been a deacon ever since. Tonight's mandate by Christ to wash the feet of others, that we just heard in our gospel, is diakonia, which is the Greek word for deacon, par excellence. Diakonia literally means servant. And it's beautifully poignant that Jesus serves as a deacon, which is the first level of holy orders, before instituting the Eucharist and the priesthood, which is obviously the second level of holy orders. The role of the deacon is twofold: to serve the poor and to serve the bishop. All good deacons, our own Deacon Mike included, do those things well and in that order. Deacon Mike and his wife Helen serve the poor at St. Bernard's Hospital in Inglewood once a month. They lead a prayer service that many of the homeless in that community, as well as other community members and hospital patients, come to, and they serve a lunch after their service. And they're far too humble to talk about it publicly, so I'm embarrassing the two of them now. But this is Deacon Mike and Helen's way of living tonight's mandatum, or mandate, to wash the feet of others. And Deacon Mike then serves the bishop by being assigned here to St. Edward and assisting in all of our liturgical ministries. But the primary role of deacon, and the image that we should always keep in mind when thinking of deacons, is Jesus washing the feet of his disciples and apostles. Then after this great event, which we will mimic tonight, Jesus calls together the 12 men that have been following him as apostles, sits them at table for Passover, and in the same action, he turns bread and wine into his own body and blood and ordains those 12 men as his first priests, telling them, "Do this in memory of me." The priesthood is inherently tied to the Eucharist. We cannot have sacraments without priests, and we cannot have priests without the sacraments. Now, why did Jesus only call men to the priesthood? I have no idea. You'll have to ask him when you see him in heaven. And to be honest, I doubt you'll care when that day comes. Heaven is far too beautiful to be distracted by earthly questions. I can, however, tell you this: Jesus was not bound by the time period he chose. He broke social norms all the time by touching lepers, talking to Samaritans, forgiving sins, breaking Sabbath laws, and eating and drinking with tax collectors, prostitutes, and other sinners. Jesus is God, and he cannot be bound, period, in any way. Jesus made his choices with purpose and full knowledge. I don't know why he chose men, I don't know why he chose bread and wine. Hot dogs and hamburgers are much more tasty. I don't know why he chose the first century in Israel instead of the Middle Ages or back during the time of Moses or even today. I don't know why he appeared to Mary Magdalene first. I don't know a lot. But I do know what he did, and that he is God. I am not, and that is okay. My friends, the priesthood is not about leadership and power. Deacons, priests, bishops, and lay people who think holy orders is about power are the ones who cause the most problems in the church. Quote me on it, tweet it, I've said it. Holy orders is as much about power as the sacrament of holy matrimony. Anyone who enters the sacrament of holy matrimony looking to have power over their spouse is doomed to have a short and miserable marriage. Lay people and clergy who think holy orders is about power are doomed to have a miserable relationship with the body of Christ and the Blessed Trinity. When I think of my own priesthood, I am grateful for three things most of all: the gift of celibacy, the gifts of the sacraments, and the gift of this parish. Celibacy allows me the freedom to be of service to the people that God has called me to serve. I can complete tonight's mandatum because I don't have the dual responsibility of caring for a family and a parish family. Priesthood and religious life requires a heart to love more than a nuclear family. I can't choose my own flesh and blood over my spiritual children. I always have to serve you, my spiritual sons and daughters. I cannot serve two masters. Celibacy gives me the freedom to love the community God sends me to serve with all of my heart, and not to have a divided heart between those I'm married to or gave birth to versus all of you. I'm also grateful for the sacraments because they keep me centered and grounded. When roofs leak or elevators break from flooding or angry emails are sent, and when everything that can go wrong in the midst of parish life goes wrong, the sacraments keep me grounded and remind me of what the priesthood is about. Priests offer sacrifice on behalf of the people to God our Father. Finally, I am grateful for this parish. Now, while humility is a great virtue, we are the best parish in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Yes, applaud yourselves, it is you, yes. When a family experiences a great loss, our community reaches out and steps up. When we needed to make our church accessible for all people to worship God with us, our community stepped up and made it happen. Whenever we need volunteers for events and other works of service through the community, our people, you, step up and give of themselves. This is how we all respond to tonight's mandatum, to wash the feet of others. Now, before I end this longer than usual homily, I apologize. I haven't celebrated Holy Thursday in like 3 years because we've had bishops the last few years, so got to get it all out now. I do have 2 favors to ask and 1 challenge. My first favor is to pray for all clergy, priests, deacons, and bishops, but especially us here at St. Edward. Deacon Mike, Father Dominic, Father Kehoe, Father McElhone, and myself, we need all the prayer and grace that we can get. And most especially tonight, favor number 2, pray for an increase in vocations to holy orders. We need more holy deacons and holy priests. And I know there's some married men in this church tonight the Lord is calling to the diaconate. I know there's single men and young men in this church, they may even be altar serving, that the Lord is calling to be priests. Do not be afraid. Talk to any of us about your potential vocation. And pray, all of us, pray for these men, whoever they are, to courageously answer that call. Marriage is not a default vocation. It's not that everyone's called to marriage and then we decide to enter into holy orders. That's not how it works. All of these are vocations that God calls us to. We cannot and need not be afraid to answer that invitation. Finally, my challenge. How are you in your own life living tonight's mandatum? How are you washing the feet of others? Are you giving your time and talent here in our parish community? Are you serving in the wider community? How are you washing the feet of others? Christ is mandating all of us to do this, to be of service, to practice diaconia. My challenge for you is to increase however it is you're serving others. If you're doing nothing, then start doing something. If you are doing something, do more. We are called ultimately to serve to the point of death. Service is supposed to be uncomfortable. Our service should look like washing feet and dying on a cross.